What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 11 of the No Starving Artist podcast. We've made it this far. We have an amazing guest today. This is a two-parter, filmed separately, but we're smashing them together. Jadell Lee. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself a little bit, and then we're going to jump right in, picking up off of part one, off of the first part we filmed. So tell the people about you a little bit.
Wow, thank you so much. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. Last week we had an amazing dialogue about everything from leadership to dancers to just everything in between. It was wonderful. And so this week I kind of came in knowing what to expect and kind of seeing where this dialogue goes. To be honest, I don't get to talk to other dance educators to this capacity or to this depth, right? And you being someone who's also judged and teaches and choreographs, you get around other dance educators and the most they do sometimes, right, is sometimes they don't have the most flattering things to say about the dancers they work with or dancers they have worked with. And so it kind of gets, doesn't allow it to get beyond a certain point, right? And so I love that we're kind of having a three-dimensional conversation about dancers, dancer etiquette, studio directors, the industry as a whole, conventions, competitions. So it's really fun. And then again, for the listeners, it allows them to get a fuller picture of what we're talking about and also just kind of the industry that they're possibly in or the experiences that they could possibly have. So that's really cool. But as far as an intro, my name is Jadell Lee. I'm a CEO. I'm a husband. I am a published author and a TEDx speaker. I travel all around the country training dancers. I've judged competitions, assistant directed competitions. I own a convention myself. And so my wife and I, we run that and build that. And it's really, really fun. And honestly, lately I've just kind of been enjoying teaching differently post-pandemic, right? And so outside of that, I'm here.
Amazing. I know I was really excited for this one as well. It's, I think we talked about it last week. It's like exhilarating when you get to talk to somebody who's kind of on the same page. And I feel like sometimes too, when we do cross paths with other dancers or teachers, it's in an environment where it doesn't always make sense to sit down and like have a full-blown conversation. Yep. Exactly. So I want to jump right into your convention, which I was looking up a little bit, but I want you to give a little overview from your perspective of what it is and what you guys are about. And then I have some questions for you. But
Good.
Okay, give me the rundown though.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. I own a convention called Elevate Convention. And so we were established in 2022. And we premiered, fall 22. We had 3 events. We went to San Jose, California. We then went to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And then from there, we went on to Glendale, California. All 3 events were awesome, fun, amazing. It's interesting because one thing that we do at our events is we take the time to have an industry talk. And it's more so a dialogue. Sometimes it turns into a Q&A because dancers, again, come to the table with anything that they want to know, anything they want to ask, or anything they want to talk about. And it's really cool because in one of our events, someone asked me straight up, why did you create Elevate? And, ultimately, what I shared with that dancer that particular day was I said I wanted to present the convention space with a healthy alternative. We've been having a lot of dialogue about injury prevention, mental health, career longevity, all these different things that, again, go into a dancer having the best possible chance at a professional career. And, I wanted to kind of put my stamp on that. The things that I've been about the last 15 years that I've been teaching have been about equipping dancers. And so when it came down to my wife and I really narrowing down our mission, it's quite literally to equip dancers for, again, a sustainable career with the personal and professional tools that they'll need. And again, equipping them to be the person their dreams demand them to be. And that, again, goes beyond technical skills. Sometimes, again, we have to talk about human engineering. Your emotional intelligence. Sometimes we have to talk about personal development, developing those communication skills, developing, again, those collaborative or those leadership skills, developing your self-esteem and your confidence. And again, that can only happen within community. But then again, that can only happen within a healthy community, a healthy environment. Meaning, we are so excited as a faculty to really navigate a space where, hey, come as you are, 100%. And then leave inspired, leave equipped, leave learning something, leave fired up, leave actually having a tool, right? Because we wanted to go beyond combos. We wanted to go beyond teaching combos or teaching just choreography or talking to dancers as though they're in the military. In order to be a professional, you have to, no. And so we wanted to get real about it. But what I do love about our faculty is that everyone's experience, from dance education to performance and stage to choreographing and directing, is just amazing. Amazing. Our faculty has worked with Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, BB Rexa, Meg Thee Stallion, you name it. So it's amazing. I love it. Elevate Convention. It truly is more than dance, which is our slogan, more than dance. And a lot of people said, well, Jadell, how did you come up with more than dance? I said, well, it's not original. We've heard that before. But honestly, more than dance is more so personal to me, because people are always surprised to learn that I'm not just a dancer or a dance teacher, but again, I am a peak performance strategist. I'm a public speaker. I work with people concerning social emotional learning. So I'm always curating workshops. And again, I counsel. I used to be a professor of dance. So all these different things that go beyond the scope of just seeing me in the dance, a classroom. And people are always surprised. And I don't know if that is my personality or my race or my industry or all these different things. I'm gonna be honest with you, but people are surprised. Whoa, you wrote a book? Whoa, you coach and mentor dancers around the country? Yeah, it's exhausting, but wonderful. Whoa, you do this. Whoa, you do. So more than dance really was personal to me. And saying again to other people, keep in mind, you are three-dimensional. You're not a one size fits all. And again, there is a dynamic excellence to all of us. And so on one hand, again, through our convention, we're like, hey, we're going to help you discover that. And then on the flip side, hey, once you've discovered it, we're going to help you develop it. Because again, these are tools that you can use in your life. Right? To have a prosperous life experience, whether it be through the dance industry, whether you decide to do anything else with your life, whether you're trying to build healthy relationships in your life. It truly is more than dance. And so Elevate Convention is something that I'm really proud of. We're off to a really great start. Our first event sold out, which was exciting. We're excited for season 2 going into this fall. And we're just, again, training focused.
It's incredible. I mean, I think it's something that's needed from a lot of the feedback that I get in talking to parents and, I think people are really hungry for authentic education right now, for education that means something. And I think it's really just a matter of oversaturation is all it is. I don't think there's been some sort of like big movement inside of people's brains. I think it's just that there's so many conventions doing the same exact thing that it's creating that void for people to want more. And I think you hit it on the head too, where there's a lot of, I've been in a lot of situations in classes where teachers say things. I feel like sometimes teachers in industry professionals will say things that sound good, but aren't necessarily the accurate truth. And when you've done stuff in the professional dance world at whatever capacity, you don't have to do a lot to realize that a lot of these sort of like sacred cows, so to speak, that teachers go off of are not really true. They're not really what happens.
Yeah. So that's it. Yes. That was something I wanted to address directly with our faculty, with our dancers, with studio owners and teachers. Because again, to your point, everyone talks about, we want to create responsible human beings. We want to create healthy. Great. Let's start with your leadership. Let's start with how you walk into a room. Let's start with how we speak to people. Let's start with, again, how we embody what that healthy living actually looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and again, it goes beyond choreography. It goes beyond you respecting me as a teacher or me having an ego as an instructor or choreographer. It truly does go beyond those types of things. And so you go into these rooms and everyone says something, to your point, that sounds nice. And then you walk out leaving, again, hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You go into an environment and it feeds your soul. You walk out full.
Yeah. You
Sometimes
feel the difference, yeah.
Yes, there is a huge difference. I'll give you an example, and I'm not, again, saying this to make our event sound like the end-all, be-all, but it was something I was incredibly proud of, because in starting our events, you know, I had a lot of students, because I teach here in Northern California. So when we had a Northern California event, I told everybody I knew, y'all better be there. It's going to be awesome. And so I had students, again, show up, have a great time. One thing that we offered was an industry opportunity where dancers could audition and perform with American Idol Season 15 runner-up LaPortia Renee. And so what we had was they'd show up to our events, they'd audition to be a part of this select group. And then at our last event, that's when they'd be able to perform live with her during our closing ceremony. And so one of my dancers was able to come to that first event, audition, and make it. And then he was able to participate in that last event, which was really cool. We had that event, and then a month later, I call him up and I say, hey, I just want to pick your brain. So you've been to this event, this event, this event, this convention, that competition. You've done it all in terms of experience. And then you came to 2 of my events.
Yeah.
Do you have any takeaways for me? Do you have any feedback for me? What was your experience? What did you like? What didn't you like? And what was so interesting, again, this is a 14-year-old freshman in high school. And he says, you know what? I really appreciated learning about the industry from a different vantage point. I'm like, where'd you learn that vocabulary? and I'm listening. Yes, he had the most well thought out response. It was very humbling because he said, I appreciated learning about the industry from a different vantage point. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, you guys had talent agents that showed up and got to talk to us about agencies, what they're looking for, what they're expecting, what they love to see, what they hope to see. You had industry talks where, again, your teachers are talking about the real life experiences, booking jobs, not booking jobs, developing time management, managing expectation for themselves, the industry, not necessarily comparing themselves from one dancer to the next, et cetera, et cetera. He said, I see dance differently. He said, but the main thing that I noticed about your event that I don't think I've experienced at other events, I said, what? He said, was that every one of your teachers, every one of your instructors had a message. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, I can remember everything that every teacher said. And I said, well, is that something that doesn't really happen? He's like, no, I mean, you go through 3 days at a convention and you barely remember it. And I said, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was really humbling to learn that, again, we came in as intentional as we wanted to, as we needed to, as a faculty and as an organization, and that at least one student actually got fed.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's really, really incredible. And I think it's like I said, I think it's so important. And I think it's where things are heading because people want it, you know, and I think that I truly do. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a new wave, you know, so to speak, of conventions and workshops and teachers that are a little bit more in tune.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes too it comes from, I think teachers will reflect on their experience, and then they'll speak from a point of view of what they should have done different or better, which I understand, but at the same time, it's like, well, what you did do got you to this point. So just tell me about what you did, not what you think we should do that was compare. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I was, you know, it's so interesting because I was literally thinking, we have to be, what I want to see in the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to dance instruction is a lot more transparency.
Exactly. Yes.
I want you to own your experience, and I want you to own your truth. I was talking to a mentor last night, and we were talking about how younger dancers, again, dancers coming up in their 20s, will burn bridges thinking that because they're moving on to the next thing, they won't be back around.
Yeah.
And I said, I did a lot of that unintentionally, not having enough vision for my character, for my reputation.
Yeah.
Right. And not so much the perception, what I want people to think and believe about me, but more so who I actually am and what experience I give people. Because here's what I learned when I started again with our first event and we sold out. And I remember we were kicking off the event and I was on the mic and I said, raise your hand if I've taught you before. 90% of the room raised their hand.
Yeah.
Mind you, some of these kids were students that I hadn't worked with in years.
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful because it really showed me what I had been doing the last couple of years. What I had been, again, leaving behind the last couple of years. And it showed me that, again, my experiences, positive and negative, weren't necessarily in vain. Because again, they landed. The nuggets, the gems, the gifts, the sowing of every seed, it landed somewhere. And so it was really humbling to see. But it was something that I was reflecting on yesterday with a mentor of mine. We were talking about another teacher, another mutual friend that we have. And it's like, hey, with this gentleman, I'm like, I love that he's growing. I love that he's learning. Because when I was his age, I was not trying to end relationships on a high note. Some of them I was kind of careless. And, as I reflect now, I'm like, dang, that wasn't very smart and it wasn't very considerate. However, I had to give myself some grace, and I'm learning how to give other people grace because, again, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's just this thing that, again, in reflecting on, when it comes to your experience, I'll tell my dancers all the time, hey, I've been fired before. And let me tell you why I was fired. And and they're like, what, really? Why would you even tell us that? Because there's a flip side to everything.
Yeah.
I remember I was rehearsing a group of dancers and they were not taking to my instruction. One thing that I share with dancers is when you get a correction, you need to prioritize that correction. You have to. And they just weren't necessarily doing that. I said, teachable moment. I was in this same type of scenario X amount of years ago in a rehearsal for a Nutcracker. I wasn't applying the corrections fast enough. I was fired in 20 minutes. In the most polite and respectful way. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to go in a different direction. Here's $20 for gas.
Yeah.
And I tell it all the time. And they're like, wow, I can't believe you'd actually tell it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, I want to see, again, to your point, in the next couple of years, more transparency.
Yeah. And I love that.
More humility. And less persona, less smokescreen, less hype. The days, at least for our events, the days of walking into a ballroom and feeling intimidated by the instructor, for us, are done.
Yeah.
We're done with that.
Yeah, I mean, so. I agree. I just think it's played out. I think there was I genuinely do think there was a time and a place. I think it worked. I think it was, for whatever reason, maybe it was just because it was the norm. But I just think we're at a point where we've seen it and heard it so many times before. Yeah. And we've felt it as dancers. So it's like, yeah, I agree with you. I want to touch on something because I had the most recent episode that's out as of us recording this was with a gal from Canada named Allie Phillips, and she spoke a lot about mentorship on the podcast, which was a new experience for me. And I've noticed that you have been doing it as well, and I'm sort of starting to see a little bit of through line here between these successful and driven people within dance and mentorship.
Yeah.
And I know from my experience in the business world that mentorship is very normal. It's almost an expectation.
100%.
It's not something that I've experienced a ton in dance until the past few weeks. So I would love if you could speak on, I mean, what got you into mentorship? How did you find a mentor? What has the value been?
Yeah, so there's two ways that I can answer that question. There's the practical way, the day-to-day way, and then there's more of a spiritual way. And I say spiritual as in divine appointments, right? And so spiritually, there was always someone in my life sewing into me at crossroad points in my life. I could go this way or I could go that way. So last
Yeah.
time that you and I spoke, I talked about a mentor that I had, Donna Solomon. And what was so wonderful about her was that she was there at a point in my life, again, 18 and 19 years young, where I was just starting out. So what did she sew into me? Foundation and structure. That was it. And that was all she was there to give me. Now, was that something that she said she was going to give me? Was that something that we agreed on? Was that something that was, again, discussed prior? No. But the through line, as you said, was foundation and structure. When it came to, here's how you deal with kids. Here's how you communicate with them. Here's how you, again, have a healthy distance so that there's a level of edification to you as the instructor and as the adult, and then for them in their place as a child and as the student.
Yeah.
Right? That was so wonderful. Then I moved on to another mentor, and he really taught me how to develop curriculum and how to develop the individual. Here's how you work with them one-on-one. Right. And he was very strategic because his ego was so big that and I say this in love because, again, you can learn from anybody, to be honest with you. His ego was so big. His whole thing was, he said, you don't need a bunch of people to hype you up. You need one success story. When it came to one-on-ones, when it came to private lessons, when it came to solos, duos, trios, competition, And I appreciated the game that he gave me because he said, you don't need a bunch of people to hype you up. You just need to turn one person into a success story. Let them tell the story. And it was something that was very interesting because he's like, hey, show them better than you can tell them, And it was wonderful because in that alone, I learned again what it truly takes to develop talent, not just coach it, not just set work on it. Right. And so to your point, yes, from a spiritual standpoint, there was always someone in my life at a time when I could have chose the latter or the former. And they really showed me, okay, here's how you go about this.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of foundation, a lot of development, a lot of vision casting, a lot of those things. And I just had to be sensitive to it. I had to be able to recognize it. And again, I find that dancers these days, they're not open to coaching. They're not open to mentorship. They're not open to someone giving correction. Again, correction truly is a blessing. Why? Because I see what you're trying to do. Here's how you can do it better, or here's how you can do it without the headache. Here's how you can do it without so much of the resistance and the friction. And that's all that people were trying to do. I just found upon reflection, it was always at pivotal points in my life. So that was something that was wonderful. From a day-to-day perspective, what's really great about it is anything that you're setting on to do, you've either seen it somewhere or you're imagining it, which means, again, either way, you don't have the blueprint. So when it comes to opportunity, what we're really talking about are information circles. How do I get into information circles, right? For example, if you want to teach for conventions, that's an information circle, right? How do I get into the space where that information is, freely given, freely spoken about? Because again, where I'm at currently, hypothetically, I'm not in that information circle. I'll give you an example of how I got into that information circle. I was at an event. Phil Wright was teaching. And what was so wonderful, my mentor always said he said a few things. Jadell, 90% of success is showing up. And then again, when it comes to showing up, you have to make sure that you get into the right rooms. Once you're in the right room, you have to act like you belong in that room. So I'm seeing Phil Wright. This guy is awesome. His energy is so infectious and wonderful.
Yeah.
And
he's a fantastic teacher.
He's amazing. And he's an amazing human being. We have downtime. So I walk right up to him. Hey, Phil, what you up to? You have any plans for lunch? I'd love to sit and pick your brain and have a discussion, whatever. I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, where are you going right now? What are you doing? Can I come with you?
Yeah.
We had lunch for at least 30 minutes together. It was the most life-changing experience ever, not just because he's awesome and amazing, but he gave me some really great advice about how to have longevity as a dance educator.
Hmm.
And I asked him straight up, how did you get a job teaching for this particular convention? How did you do that? And everything he shared with me, I applied.
Hmm.
And I want to say 3 months later, I was booked for my first convention off
Jeez.
of that information. Again,
Yeah.
he's on the inside of that information circle because he's doing it.
Right.
So I
Right.
needed I needed information, I needed someone to give me the real, and it just happened to be him. And it was wonderful because he was so humble about it. But I
Yeah.
was so open in that moment as well. And so when it comes to mentorship, the value of that is that, again, you're having someone help you to develop both personally and professionally, depending on what they're there to give you and
Hmm.
depending on their experiences, etc. But in addition to that, when it comes to, again, navigating a career, it really is about learning how to get into these information circles, accessing
Hmm.
information, and then applying that information. And sometimes that's, again, through having a conversation with someone. Sometimes that's through an invite. Sometimes that's through showing up, or my mentor would always say, Jadell, invite people to lunch. Best way,
Hmm.
best way to have someone's ear is during a free meal. So
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah.
yeah, I had mentors for all different things, personal and professional. On top of that, I've always had therapists and counselors. And
Hmm.
so having that type of guidance was always something that I needed and
Yeah.
something that I learned to seek out.
Hmm.
Any mentor I had, they weren't just freely given that information. They weren't just freely giving their time. They weren't just freely sowing into me because they just liked my personality. When I was younger, I was a
Yeah.
lot more rough around the edges. So in that,
Hmm.
it really was, again, at those different pain points in my life or those different pivotal moments of my life where, again, God would just send someone to just sow the right types of things. And it was a beautiful thing because sometimes, again, I had mentors. I remember I had a mentor. Oh my gosh. This man taught me everything I needed to know about networking, rapport building, personal development,
Hmm.
building organizations, building teams, building relationships, selling, closing, like literally sales.
Yeah.
And he was the type of person, when he called, you answered. And not because he was a control freak or anything negative. It's because he was so
Yeah.
selective with his time. You didn't answer the phone, you wouldn't talk to him again for another 6 months. They
Yeah.
called him Mr. International because he was always in a different country. Always.
Hmm.
At first, when I first met him, I was like, oh, that's just hype. No, there were times where he would call me from Taiwan. There were times he'd call me from the Philippines. There'd be times he'd call me from the
Yeah.
UK. I'm like, bro, my data plan don't cover all this. So I'm going to need. But anytime I spoke to him, he'd be like, Jadell, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And this is happening. This happening. This happening. And all this. And it's wonderful. And he's like, great. You sound busy. Yeah, man. It's just wonderful. He's like, I got a question for you. I was like, yeah, what's up? Are you busy or are you productive?
Hmm.
Like, hey, man. Well, I
Hmm.
was having a good time, but you know. So he was someone that, again, really taught me how to hone in on my efforts and really taught me
Yeah.
how to leverage. How to
Hmm.
leverage. Leverage what? Leverage anything. Leverage your time,
Yeah.
leverage your relationships, leverage your gifts, right?
Yeah.
He just really taught me how to be intentional with the things that I had at my fingertips. And it was really wonderful
Yeah.
because he would always say, Jadell, what books are you reading? What are you learning this week? What habits have you given up? What new
Hmm.
habits have you embraced? I mean, he was always someone about, hey, that's great where you are. What's next?
Yeah.
And how are
Yeah.
we using this to get to the next space? So when it came to mentorship on the day-to-day, it really was about having vision and then casting it, right? Where are we going? And it really was about, you know, instilling structure and purpose into everything that I did. And it
Yeah.
really was about being momentum focused and, again, growth focused. So something, again, what are you producing and how is that growing? And all of
Yeah.
that, again, to this day, still leaves an impression on me. And it's the same way that I approach dancers. I like to coach them. I like to mentor them. And again, even in those experiences being temporary. So one thing I learned is that mentorship is temporary. You may have someone for 6 months, you may have them for a year, you may have them for 10 years, but it's still temporary. You know,
Right.
I had Miss Solomon for 5 years, off and on. And I was actually with her at the end of her life. So she passed away. Last 6 months of her life, God had positioned me to help take care of her, which was wonderful. And because again, even in that, oh my gosh, even in that, the last 6 months, I want to say, of her life, she was still blessing me because I had just
Yeah.
graduated college. I had no job. I had no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to go, what was the next thing. I had gotten signed, so I'm going to auditions left and right. And
Yeah.
she said, "Come stay with me. I won't charge you rent. You can't have anybody over. You can eat my food, but I want you out in 6 months."
Yeah.
And so it was such a beautiful thing because again, she was still sewing into me, and it was tough love because when it
Yeah.
was time for me to go, she was like, "All right, it's that time. You got to go." Wait, no, you got
Mm.
30 days. It was it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. But we were there to serve each other at that point. But it was wonderful.
It's
So yeah,
incredible.
mentorship's important.
Yeah.
Because in the business world, yeah, if you don't have a mentor, you don't know what you're doing. You really
Yeah.
don't. You
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
And in the industry, in the dance world, you know, everyone is so guarded. You know, people
Yeah.
act like they're protecting
Yeah.
state secrets. People act like they're brain surgeons up in here, and everything again
Yeah.
has to be more complicated than it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you an example. You know, the other day I asked a teacher. I said, "Hey, I loved what you posted. You know, your progressions and stuff for hip hop. Can you send me those videos?"
Hmm.
He's like, "Oh yeah, sure. They're not mine." Oh sure. You know, someone gave them to me. The most
Yeah.
humbling thing. I was so nervous to send that text because, you know, again, I've encountered
Yeah.
people go, "No, it took me years to develop that. That's mine."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know, when it comes to, you know, sharing information, you know,
Yeah.
I found that people aren't as open, and it is what it is.
Do you think some of it is the facade of success that sort of blankets the dance industry? It's something that I've been really interested in the past few years, is just this idea that um, as dancers, we assume success based off of platform, based off of followers, based off of what jobs you've done. But in reality, a lot of times that doesn't quite line up. And I don't say that in a negative sense at all. It's just the truth
Of
of the
course.
matter is there's a lot of dancers that are doing amazing things in the eyes of
Sure.
dancers, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're wildly successful. So I almost wonder if sometimes that sort of that you're constantly battling what people perceive you as versus what the reality is. So you almost become guarded because you don't want to expose the truth of the situation.
100%. You know, and that's the part where it kills me when we talk about conventions and competitions because, again, for teachers or choreographers to walk in like you should know who they are. Let's be clear. Let's be
Yeah.
clear. The last 15 years, where, you know, with social media, has really unveiled a lot of the back end of the industry when it comes to the people who help to make the successful people look successful but don't necessarily get their credit. So in
Mm.
that, boo, if I don't know who you are, it's because the industry didn't want me to know who you are. Okay. And let's be clear, if I'm watching the movie and I'm watching the credits, girl, I'm only looking at the cast. I'm not going all the way down to the production and the crew. But I'm glad you did your thing. So in that, we really do have to like let up on this whole "do you know who I
Yeah.
am" thing. We really do. I remember
Yeah.
I was at a
Yeah.
convention and I saw a really great choreographer and someone who inspired me. Oh my gosh. I was
Mm.
fanning out. Like, I need to go meet you.
Yeah.
And it was so wonderful. So I get my student, like, let's go meet this person. So I walk up to them and I say, "Oh my gosh, love your work. Can we please get a picture?" And this person literally turned to
Yeah.
me, and I kid you not, "And you are?" I said so quickly, not interested anymore. Thank you. Come on, guys. And I took my students. I said,
Yeah.
come on, let's go. Let's go
Yeah.
find something to eat.
That's
It was
crazy.
crazy. Oh my
That's
goodness.
crazy.
So,
Well, I made this video about this exact topic, and it was
yes.
like, it was this weird dynamic. It's just such a weird dynamic that grown people will walk
Yep.
into a room with 12-year-old
Yep.
dancers and act like it's so
Very.
strange when you put it in the context of what it is. It's like, what are we really doing here? And
100%.
I had a experience, I think it was 2
Mm-hmm.
seasons ago at a convention where I really enjoyed the class. I enjoyed the
Sure.
combination. It was the last class of
Mm-hmm.
the weekend, and it was in the senior room. And the teacher, everybody was tired at that point. Everybody's tired. Everybody's a little burnt out, but we're
Yeah,
there. We're in the
it's a
class.
full
We're ready to
weekend.
go. Yeah. And I just remember the teacher getting so upset repeatedly. I need more. I need you to give me more. I need you to give me more. And then it started turning into, well, if you knew the people that I taught, if you saw the people that I've taught and coached, you'd be giving more. And I was just kind of, at that point I'm a teacher now. I still go to convention, but at that point I had my teacher glasses on, and I was like, what's happening right now in the
Yes.
room? And you could see people falling off more and more
Yes.
and more. So it was like their intention was to recapture the class, but in doing it the way they did it, they were losing more and more and more and more people. And more people just started checking out. And it was like, it was just this weird
Yeah.
energy. And I don't know. Yeah. And it's just it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. And I think like we've been kind of talking about it, it's something that needs to change. And I think it
Yeah.
is changing. But
Yeah, it is. It's this thing, and unfortunately, the kids don't know any better. They
No.
don't. They think that
No. No.
because they grow up in these environments, they just assume that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate because it's not necessary. I want to put this in the context of a 3-day weekend. It is Sunday. It's the last class. I'm exhausted. I've been overwhelmed. I just got done
Yeah.
competing. I'm doing
Yeah.
this. I'm doing this, and I'm here. It's 8 a.m. It's 9 a.m. And you want more? More what? More what? Let's be clear. You want more what? So in that,
Yeah.
and I get it.
Yeah.
I understand the other side of it is like, dang, they're used to being in these particular environments. But again, boo, you need to read the room. You need to
Yeah.
read the room.
Yeah.
Because again,
Yeah.
what your class may need may be something other than this huge industry push choreo right now. That may not be it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's this dichotomy. I know with Elevate Convention, we want you to come as you are with any level of experience that you have a good time, and it's something that I literally instruct our faculty to do. Talk to the dancers in the back. Talk to the dancers in the back.
This is
I
another
literally
one,
like
yeah.
we have our
Yeah.
like meetings before we go out, and it's like, all right, come on, yeah, let's do it. Talk to the dancers in the back. Acknowledge the ones here in the
Yeah.
front, but hey, you in the back with the green and the number 32. Great, do this part, and give them feedback in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the whole point of More Than Dance is really, really demonstrating what it's like to actively see everyone in the room, actively touch and engage everyone in the room. We have this industry program that we're launching this season, which I'm so excited about, called Elevate Pro. And my heart with that, because on one hand, recreationally, we want to train dancers, we want to equip dancers in a class setting, but more intentionally, more competitively, for the dancers that are seeking a professional career, the dancers that want to go the extra mile, take that extra step, we wanted to create a program that was tailored toward that focus and that intention. So through Elevate Pro, what's really wonderful is that you can come to our event, enjoy the event as a whole, register separately to audition for Elevate Pro. And if you're selected, then you participate in a 2-day intensive that happens a few months later, which is exciting. At this particular event, we help you develop your headshots. So you get to get your headshots done by a professional photographer. You film a professional reel, which is exciting. In addition to that, you participate in different mentoring sessions where you learn about image and social media consult, how to build out your resume and bio, how to, submit yourself for teaching roles, et cetera, et cetera. And then also in that same 2-day weekend, you participate in a mock talent agency audition with a few agents from the LA area, which is super exciting. So essentially, Elevate Pro is a program that helps you put together your press kit. So should you decide to pursue a professional career, you already know how to professionally curate your resume, how to, again, navigate your bio at whatever level of experience or level of credits that you have. You have your headshots, relevant and fresh headshots, a reel to show your level of ability, etc. And then you also get, again, when we talk information circles, you get to be in the room with agents and participate in a live Q&A and mock audition. We've had events like this, similar. We had a beta test of this event last season, and a few dancers got signed.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
It's exciting.
That's incredible.
And what was really wonderful, because one thing that I don't like about the whole, having that like company of dancers that are associated with the convention is that they put it to where those dancers have to follow the convention throughout the season. For the families that can't afford that, does that mean the opportunity is closed off to them? You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want necessarily for them to have to shadow us all season. No. Audition at whatever city, and then we'll see you in a couple months. So it limits the time expectation.
I love that.
It limits the time commitment.
Yeah, it's very much pay to play at a lot of at conventions, which is something that I struggle with as well. So I love that.
Yeah,
concept.
and so even with that, and again, I understand it from a business standpoint now. I understand
100%.
Numbers make the world go round, not just love. Okay.
Yep.
So I understand it comes down to volume, right? Volume translates into dollars. Dollars helps pay for everything. However, when we're talking those more committed dancers, those committed dancers don't have the time. They make the time, which is wonderful. Yeah. But I want to reach the dancers who again are committed, have the talent, have the skill, but I want to alleviate some of the financial burden so that the part that actually matters actually happens. Because there's this promise, there's this unspoken promise that if you do all this crap, if you do all this stuff, you're going to make it. It's like, but you can make it without doing all half those stuff. So we wanted to take out the stuff that you didn't really need to do in order to get to the meat and the potatoes. One, because we didn't want to take away from your weekly class commitments, or your studio commitments on the weekends, rehearsals, etc. And then we also didn't want to, again, unintentionally enforce this idea that if you get close to the choreographers, if you know their names and they know you, then somehow it's going to immediately translate. Sometimes, again, it takes time, it takes years, it takes the right job, it just takes the right set of circumstances for those choreographers to come full circle and work with someone they've taught at a convention. And so we wanted to give grace to that, but also, again, the parts that matter, we wanted to, again, make sure dancers had the opportunity to show up for that. Again. Yeah.
I love that so much. I love that. I really, really like that. I had a question. This one is not that deep. I've been asking you some deep stuff, I feel like, but this one's not that deep. So I noticed on your convention that what are the stops?
Yeah, so season? We're at San Jose, California, which is Northern California. Then we go on to Orlando, Florida.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't want to, I was like, I'm pretty sure. So how do you decide? Because I feel like a little bit, I feel like you already know what I'm going to ask you. Because this is a little bit odd for a startup convention to branch so far out of their home base. So what was it did you just know you had an audience there and you were like, let's go? Or is this like, let's jump in and see what happens?
Here's the thing. You're always jumping in. You're always trying to see what happens. So that doesn't go away. Even being in San Jose, I've taught in Northern California in the last 6, 7, 8 years, and I had no idea if people would show up. So it really, even now, it's like, we'll see who registers. People are saying this and they're saying that, and it's wonderful. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it. It really is the wait and see type of game. The studio that I teach at, they've been around for almost 40 years, and the owner says, every time we put out the schedule, I never expect people to register for classes. So I'm always humbled when they do. And I said,
That's
really? 40
interesting.
years into the game? She's like, yeah, I never know. So that right there humbled me.
Jeez.
So it was like, okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
This is a marathon. It's not a race. Specifically with Florida, one of our faculty members lives there. And she said, Jadell, if you bring it out to Florida,
Okay.
I'm confident people will show up and show out. And I said, all right, well, there was a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
planning because, it was a question of, do we go back to Colorado or do we go to Florida?
Yeah.
Do we go back or do we? So
Yeah.
we went ahead and chose the latter, which was, let's try out Florida. And it was a lot of planning. And so,
Yeah.
again, it's still the wait and see game, but that comes with the territory. That honestly comes with the territory, because when we went out to Glendale, I hadn't been in SoCal in a long time. So it really was the wait and see game there. And so this season, I've had a lot of conversations with different studio owners. And so I'm excited because our turnout's going to be different. Numbers are going to be bigger. New studios are coming. So it's wonderful that, again, we went that first year for even Glendale. And I'm excited to see how that grows this season. And so, I mean, that's how we kind of decided it. My wife and I had to look at our budget. We really had to crunch the numbers. But ultimately, it always comes down to taking a risk. And the only thing that I can say to anyone who's in the position of, do I try something? Do I try it? If you do it unto excellence, you should have no regret. If you do it unto excellence, if you do the best that you can, if you do everything that you can to make something successful, and at the end of it, whether it turns out wonderful or not, if you've given it your all, then that really is all that matters. I think in these types of situations, the only common denominator is money, and so if we're willing to spend the money, great. What else can we do in excellence? So that was that. That's how we kind of came to that. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. We have some dancers that already registered, which is exciting. And that's Florida.
I mean, it's Florida. It's funny. It's just I think I talked about it last time. Like, it's just these constant connections that I've been drawing between like successful people as I do these, and like I was talking to another guest, and I was like, it was after the podcast, and she's like, so what are you doing? And it was before I had launched my on-demand platform that's out now. And then I was telling her that I'm doing this in-person training program as well. And I'm like, I'm terrified. Like, what if nobody auditions? And she cut me off, and she was like, what if nobody auditions? And I was like, I guess nobody auditions. And she was like, exactly. If nobody auditions, then there's your answer. Nobody auditions. But if somebody does, then there you go. And so it's like a very similar to what you're saying now, where it's like, do it. And if the worst case scenario is you tried it and it was just as uncomfortable if you were to try it
100%. 100%. So one thing that you asked me last time was, hey, your social media looks like this, and this. And I went through this whole spiel about how I had to create the image that I wanted people to see. So I really did have to project the idea, the image, the persona that I needed people to see in order for me to be respected in these particular spaces. And that's one thing I do admire about how you're curating your online platforms, because it's very clear who you are, what you're about, what you're here to do. And so even for people that, again, are in that situation of, I'm creating this thing and I want to do this thing but what if? And one thing I had a mentor say is, Jadell, you got to get rid of that ready, aim syndrome. Right? We got it. Okay, ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim. And we never fire. We never go for it. We never shoot our shot. And in that, there's these two dancers that I know. We used to dance together when I was younger. And they have like millions of followers on TikTok. They're incredible. They helped the Savage Remix Challenge go viral with Meg Thee Stallion and Beyonce. And so that blew them up. Blew them up. And then once that happened, they were interviewed here and there, and this happened and this happened. And what was so interesting about that was a lot of people were like, man, they're so amazing. And I said, Boo, they had been doing videos like that for 5 years prior. They had already done 5 world tours before that moment of going viral online as dancers. They've already
Yeah.
toured
Yeah.
internationally. They've already done this. They've already done festivals. They were already doing their thing. And the common denominator truly is time, effort, intentionality.
Mm.
Time, effort, and intentionality, and remaining consistent. Again, it's a
Yeah.
marathon, not a race. And I hear a lot of people talk about things they want to start, but I never hear people talk about things they want to finish. I never hear people
Mm.
talk about things they
Mm.
want to develop, things they want to build. And so it's
Yeah.
something that, again, I think when
Yeah.
we talk about social media and we look at the perceptions and the personas and all this, we see the end product. We see what the parts that, again, people want us to see. And then we go in trying to recreate
Yeah.
that or emulate that or create an idea of that. The challenge is, no, you're building something,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in the beginning, you're establishing what it is. That's it. In the
Mm.
beginning, your first
Mm.
year of doing anything is you're establishing. Even for our convention,
Yeah.
we were establishing our presence. So in that,
Yeah.
what if people don't show up? I know why people wouldn't show up. They have all these alternatives, and they know those alternatives. They don't know me.
Mm.
So we got to
Mm.
get them.
Mm.
We got to create a way for them to get to know us. So when it comes to our social media,
Yeah.
what are we pushing? What are we pumping? Mission. We're really, truly
Mm.
pumping the mission of
Mm.
what we're doing, the heart of what we're doing. And then
Yeah.
if people try us out, great. If they don't, great. But I want people to show up for the
Yeah.
mission. And then I want them to have a kick-ass class or an amazing experience.
Yeah.
But I want them to
Yeah.
show up
Yeah.
for the mission. That's literally it.
I love
So,
that. I love that.
you know,
I love that. Yeah, it's again, if anybody that listens to this, I mean, I think you're giving so much value in a space where value is
not given freely
very
either.
often. Not given freely, yeah. And I actually was just responding to a post from, I don't know if you're familiar with Antoine Troop at all, but he made this story post basically saying like a lot of people are so focused on their plan B, plan C, plan D, and essentially saying like a lot of people keep jumping ship. Something doesn't work out and they jump ship, but then they find out that they're just kind of, everything is hard. Everything has its like journey. And if you would have just focused on, and the reason I responded is I was like, man, like this hit me because I feel like I've been guilty of this. I feel like I've wasted years jumping ship because I thought it would be a better outcome. And then I always end up back where I started. And it was like, sometimes I think about if I would have just stuck with what I was on to in the beginning, where would I be now?
So I want to respond to that because that right there is why mentorship is important. Because we truly have to understand the scope of what we're embarking on. Right? When you call yourself an entrepreneur, do you really know what you're saying? When you call yourself an educator, do you really know what you're saying? And I had to say this to my company students last week. I said to my hip hop, my jazz and contemporary, all of them. First day of class, I said, because we started our new session, I said, in this rehearsal, I go between being an educator and a coach. They were like, what's the difference? I said, there's a huge difference. I said, in education, I got patience. In coaching, I don't. In education, we're establishing, we're building, we're developing. In coaching, I'm really trying to get a response out of you. I'm trying to get this. And I'm navigating. The experience is different. I said, it's going to sound different. It's going to look different. And in that, I really wanted the dancers to understand, okay, when I approach you like this is where I'm coming from. But when I approach you from this vantage point, then that's where I'm coming from. And I need you to be able to read the difference. A lot of us jump into things, to your point, and don't read the difference. My mentor would always say, Jadell, how you do anything is how you'll do everything. And that's why with what you just said is why mentorship, personal and professional development is needed no matter what industry you're in. Because again, I had another mentor say, Jadell, wherever you are, there you are. So in that, if you were someone who didn't finish something in this industry or in this endeavor, you're going to be that same
Yeah.
person. And when
Yeah.
my mentor, Mr. International, would always call
Yeah.
me, are you productive or are you busy? It's easier to be busy.
Yeah.
It's harder to be productive. Why? It's harder to be productive because then you have to be
Yeah.
held
Yeah.
accountable to what you said was important to you. So even in season 1, we looking at the numbers, we looking at the success, we looking at the this and the that. Great. For season 2, Jadell, what are you going to be accountable to? Is what my wife would come at me with.
Yeah.
If we're about equipping
Yeah.
dancers, then we don't need all this and this and we need to let's keep the main thing the main thing. So in that, having vision is important, but having, again, the stamina and the mindset to build is even more important. Because that's what you're doing. In the first year of anything, first 2 years of anything, you're establishing. Beyond that, you're building. We want to we want to take the role of CEO as though you just get to navigate and direct and facilitate. No. Excuse me. We're developing culture. We're developing expectation. We're developing infrastructure. There's a way that all of this has to go down. So it's such a big thing. My heart has been, because during the pandemic, what I started to do was I started to coach, similar to you in different ways. I started to coach dance educators in the areas of vision, strategy, and personal and professional development. Because my heart has always been, there's room for everybody at the top. There truly is. And so what are the things that we need to learn that, again, allow us to set ourselves up for success as well as longevity? And then also, what are the things that we need to learn that help us to further establish ourselves as expert in our field without stifling or competing with our neighbors or the community that we say we're here to help build and develop? And so, since 2020, I've spent a lot of time helping dance educators from a business standpoint. Great. Let's develop your quotes. Let's talk about pay rates. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you get into studios you've never taught in cities that you've never been in, right? So cold calling, cold emailing, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And that part's always really fun because people are always in disbelief of, I don't think it's going to work out. And, and then I show them that it works and that it's really simple. And they're always super surprised. And it's so humbling because then, again, you get to help them raise their belief level in themselves. It's a whole thing. But then on the flip side, when we're talking, curriculum, class structure, etc., when we're talking leadership development, when we're talking team building, when we're talking, even, again, to your point about how to get on certain platforms, how to end up judging, how to end up teaching on faculty for this, how to get into these spaces. It's been really fun teaching people how to do those things because, again, you have to have, again, a business strategy to all of that. But then on the other hand, you have to play to your strengths as well. So it's been really cool. It's been really interesting to help address those things through that type of coaching.
Yeah. For sure. Man, it is an extreme pleasure. I want to say every time, it's like we've had 2 conversations, but it's like I don't know. It's wonderful to just talk with you about all these things, and like it's so apparent. I had somebody tell me, and it was like really flattering. Just it's clear when you see someone who's a master at what they do. And when I speak to you, it's so clear. It's so crystal clear, it's really cool. Where can people find you?
Yeah.
Where can people find the convention?
Thank you. Let's start with the convention. We're Elevate Convention, More Than Dance. And I'm so excited because this season we have 3 tour dates. October 1st, which is a Sunday, we're at the DoubleTree Hotel in San Jose, California. October 29th, which is also a Sunday, we're at the DoubleTree Hotel, which is in Orlando, Florida, which is right there by the airport. And then also on November 12th, which is a Sunday, we're actually at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Glendale, California. Our website is letselevatedance.com. You can learn all about our one-day event, which is super exciting. And then you can also learn about Elevate Pro, which is our industry program. And then also, if you want to find us on Instagram, we're at elevateconvention.dance, and then myself at Jadell Lee. There's 3 L's and 2 E's there, so you know.
Amazing.
But yeah, we're here.
Amazing.
We're about it. We're so excited for this season. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have, if you're listening to this or I guess watching it, I'll have all those links in the description. So be sure to check that out. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.